the end of the world as we know it, and we are talking Armageddon Tales. Now this is an anthology movie with only 3 stories in it, all of which are obviously to do with post-apocalyptic, end of the world kind of scenarios. Let's discuss each film, one by one. So we'll start off, as you probably expect, with the first film, which to me is by far and away the strongest. Now, because these movies, there's only 3 of these short films, each of the films is actually a little longer than a lot of these kind of anthology films, which does give them a chance to have a little bit more sort of characterization and kind of set up, world building in them. And I really appreciate this. One of the problems I have with anthologies as a general rule is you never really feel like you get to know people. But in these, certainly the first 2, you do get that. So the first movie, it focuses on these 2 guys. We have an older guy called Alex, who is possibly somewhat mentally unstable, but he is certainly more experienced, and he kind of ends up running into this younger guy called Joshua, who's a little more naive, but they're both kind of looking for water, and they both have differing ideas about maybe what to do and where to go. They are pursued by some type of creature. So it follows these guys on their quest to try and find some sanctuary, stay safe and find water. We also learn that there's kind of an infection that is transmitted partially, at least through rats. So there's also that ever-present danger in this type of world as well. So what I liked about this one really has a high production value. There is some absolutely incredible location shooting here, all on these kind of like these decimated buildings, and there's some truly horrifying but beautiful shots showing a kind of a Armageddon style world where things are just decimated. And I've got to say here, the cinematography and what they've done to have some of these kind of shots looks very, very impressive. I really enjoyed the cinematography, as I say. I thought the costume designing was excellent. I thought they looked sort of Mad Max, but not unwieldy, so not kind of so it seems just like more of a fashion choice. It seems somewhat more practical. I thought the acting with the 2 guys was good here. I thought they had a prickly but interesting kind of relationship. And then we have this creature design here, which I thought was also very impressive. Now they wisely don't show too much of it, because obviously it is a sort of a lower budget short movie, but I gotta say what they do show is pretty interesting and very unique looking in a lot of ways. Doesn't really kind of tell you too much about why that is, but I don't think it needs to. The only issue I have, remember, with this one, I think the ending is a little weak. I do understand what they were going through, and obviously it's pointing to how people are maybe pushed mentally in kind of these situations, but nonetheless, I've got to say I thought the ending was a little weak. The second film is kind of almost like a little bit like the Last of Us video game, where we have a guy who is escorting this young girl to relatives safely. Now she has some type of virus, and in this situation, in this story, there is a virus which is caused by a variety of means, which ultimately, if left untreated, will turn its victims into zombie-like creatures. So we have this young girl being transported by her protector to try and find some relative safety. Now we see that there's some type of floating structure in the sky, which they believe may give them some respite. But that's kind of all I'll say on the plot on this one. What did I like about this one? I did like the relationship between this guy and the young girl. I thought the young girl actually did a pretty good job of some sort of solid acting. Less so the guy. I thought the acting there was, from him, not quite as strong, if I'm being completely honest with you. But nonetheless, I still felt like there was some good character growth. The only other issue I would have with this story is I really didn't feel like the things were adequately kind of explained. The kind of this structure that's kind of floating in the sky, it almost looks alien, but we don't really know much about it. We've seen there's some confrontation with other kind of humans. We don't really know why that is. So that, to me, this one, there was just not, the narrative wasn't quite as strong. Some things here just seem to happen randomly without really having much reason for it. So then we kind of have a time jump as well. So, I don't know, this one was kind of middling to me. I like some aspects of it. I like the relationship. And the effects work wasn't bad. The zombies could have done a little bit more work with, to be fair. But to me, this was not as strong. But the last one is to me, the weakest, because it had really nothing to it. This one, we have these two women. This is the shortest one, but it's still, you know, it's 15, 20 minutes, something like that. We have these two women who are going out hunting, and they come across this guy who seems to have power, and it's kind of a little hideout, and they wouldn't know why, and ultimately this leads to a confrontation. This is really a nothing film. I don't think that there was really much to it. We didn't really know our characters. They just kind of seemed, you know, blank slates, to be honest with you. And then we have a kind of a reveal within the movie, which I think is fairly obvious. And it didn't really go anywhere, this film, to me. It didn't really have much point to it. Overall, I think the first movie is above average, to be honest, and probably worth watching if you like kind of science fiction, end of the world stuff, just for this movie. The other two films are not as interesting. I think the second one isn't too bad, but the third one is weak. Overall, I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. So I've got 1 good, 1 average, 1 below average. So the film as a whole is probably about an average film. So I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.